Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Samma samadhi ananda bhavito bahuli kato raga vinaya pariyosano hoti. Dosa vinaya pariyosano hoti. Moha vinaya pariyosano hoti iti. Dear Dhamma friends, as you all know, we are discussing Janussoni Brahmana Sutta, which is available in Samyutta Nikaya, Magga Samyutta. Magga Samyutta actually deals with the Noble Eightfold Path. So this sutta, Janussoni Brahmana Sutta, also therefore discuss the Noble Eightfold Path. So the Noble Eightfold Path, as you all know, consisting 8 path factors, and they are divided into 3 trainings or 3 sikha. And the first one is called Panya Sikha, right view and right intention, Samma Ditti, Samma Sankappa. And then we come across Sila Sikha, the morality restraint, morality training, that is Samma Vacha, Samma Kammanta, Samma Ajiva, right speech, right action and right livelihood. And then we come across the Samadhi Sikha, or the concentration training, and which consists of right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. That is Samma Vayama, Samma Sati, Samma Samadhi. So this sutta in a way quite interesting because it was preached to Venerable Ananda based on his request, his invitation, because he has noticed a very beautiful vehicle while he was in alms round in Sravati, and he one time went through alms round in Savatthi, and he has noticed one Brahmin called Janussoni, and he is actually going through the city using an entirely white color vehicle, white color chariot, and the horses used there are white color, and the canopy of the vehicle is also white color. Wheels, reins, and even the clothing what the passengers are wearing are all white color. And Janussoni Brahmana himself was wearing white color clothing. So this was kind of an interesting sight, and the city people were amazed by seeing that, and they were appreciating it and mentioning that it's a kind of a divine vehicle. So this was noticed by Venerable Ananda, and he came to the Buddha and after his alms round, and he asked a question basically to give a kind of an analogy between this kind of a divine vehicle with the Dhamma. Now according to Dhamma, is it possible to tell that there is some teaching which is quite relevant or quite similar to a divine vehicle? And then Buddha mentioned, yes, it is possible, and it is nothing but the Noble Eightfold Path. And there Buddha mentioned Noble Eightfold Path can be considered as the divine vehicle, as a Brahma vehicle, as a Dhamma vehicle, an unsurpassed vehicle used in the battlefield with the defilements. So therefore he mentioned each and every path factor, if one develops well and if one practice well, it will cause to eradicate lust, and it will cause to eradicate hatred, and it will cause to eradicate delusion. So here we have come across now the Samma Samadhi, the last path factor in the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the third factor in the Samadhi Sikha. And there also Buddha mentioned Samma Samadhi Ananda Bhavito Bahuli Kato Raga Vinaya Pariyosano Hoti. So if one develops Samma Samadhi, right concentration, it will lead to the eradication of lust. Dosa Vinaya Pariyosano Hoti. If one develops Samma Samadhi properly, then it will lead to eradicate hatred. Similarly, it will lead to eradicate delusion. Now we have to explore a little bit about Samma Samadhi, and actually there are various suttas talking about Samma Samadhi, and just to give you a brief idea, certain suttas actually talks about the 4 types of jhana as the Samma Samadhi. And there are other suttas which discuss broadly about Samma Samadhi in many aspects, and therefore it is necessary to touch or to describe Samma Samadhi in talking or touching various suttas in order to get the proper understanding about it. So if we refer, say, Samadhi Bhavana Sutta, which is available in the Anguttara Nikaya, that is the numerical discourses of the Buddha, and there Buddha mentioned there are 4 types of Samadhi. Samadhi Bhavana or Samadhi meditation, concentration meditation. And there he mentioned Atti Bhikkave Samadhi Bhavana Bhavita Bahuli Kata Dittha Dhamma Sukha Viharaya Sangvattati. So there is one type of Samma Samadhi concentration practice. If one develops that, he would be able to experience very pleasant, blissful experience in this very life. So this is one type of Samadhi. And then Buddha mentioned Atti Bhikkave Samadhi Bhavana Bhavita Bahuli Kata Jnana Dassana Patilabhaya Sangvattati. And there is another type of concentration. If one develops that, then he, as a result of that development, he would be able to he would be able to get the Dibba Chakku, the clairvoyance. So that is the other type of Samadhi. And then there's another third category of Samadhi that where Buddha mentioned Atti Bhikkave Samadhi Bhavana Bhavita Bahuli Kata Sat Sampajanyaya Sangvattati. That is another category of Samadhi concentration. If one develops that, one would be able to develop mindfulness and clear comprehension. That is another category. Last category Buddha mentioned Atti Bhikkave Samadhi Bhavana Bhavita Bahuli Kata Asavanam Khayaya Sangvattati. The fourth category Buddha mentioned, if that Samadhi develops, one would be able to eradicate all influxes. So therefore it is necessary to touch upon these 4 categories if we have to understand the concentration or the Samadhi practice. Now, as I mentioned, the first category is basically allowing us to enjoy some kind of a bliss, some kind of a happiness, pleasure in this very life. So therefore it is necessary to discuss that type at the first, and that is the one actually in certain suttas referred as Samma Samadhi. Say for example, in Majjhima Nikaya, Satcha Vibhanga Sutta, where Venerable Sariputta give a good explanation of the Noble Eightfold Path and the 4 Noble Truths basically. So there he mentioned Samma Samadhi as this first category, where that we can say as the stepping stone to the development of the Samadhi. Now there he mentioned the 4 types of jhana or the material jhana, absorptions. Now if we refer concentration, the Samadhi, so what happens in the mind? So basically the mundane, typical nature of the mind is to be with various kinds of hindrances. So the mind go to various lustful thoughts and entertaining various lustful objects, and similarly mind goes to various thoughts of ill will, and it is dwelling in that thoughts, and again sometimes become drowsy, lethargic, lazy, and then sometimes regretting about the past, and again having some restlessness in the mind, and again entertaining various doubts. So this is the typical situation of a mind. So basically under the influence of various hindrances. Now if one is developing concentration, so we have to address all these hindrances in order to attain proper Samadhi. Therefore it is necessary to understand when we are developing concentration, how these each and every hindrance is properly subsided, or they are addressed. So they are in check. Say for example, if one develops mindfulness on breathing, so again and again he is now keeping his attention on breathing. He sit cross-legged and maintain a very conducive posture, comfortable posture, and he is keeping his attention closer to the nostril. And there he is experiencing in-breath and he's experiencing out breath. Now at the beginning it's difficult to do even that because mind is so restless. So what he does is that he is keeping kind of a noting, labeling. When in breath it happens, so he note it as in. When out breath happens, he note it as out. So he's keeping the practice simple, and as much as possible, each and every in breath and each and every out breath mindfully recognized. So this is the first task. Now he is continuing his practice, and again in breaths and out breaths happen. So he has to mindfully recognize them and mentally also note them in, out. So there's a physical process, and he is fairly comprehending the physical process using a mental process, and he is very much like seconding it or accepting it, acknowledging it using a mental verbalization. Now as he is continuing like this, so there is always kind of an activity in the mind. So there is a task given to the mind, that is to recognize each and every in breath and out breath. So therefore it cannot basically go to any kind of drowsiness or laziness, because there is a task given, and breathing does not stop, it's continually happening. As a result, again and again a new breath happens. So he has to mindfully recognize the incoming breath, the outgoing breath. Therefore this kind of an activity makes the mind somewhat activated or free from lethargic, free from laziness, free from sloth and torpor. So this vitakka, what we call as applied mind, again and again there is a physical objects, primary object, and to which we have to apply the mind. Again and again we have to do it. So if one is doing it intentionally and one is doing it successfully, so there is no possibility of entertaining drowsiness or laziness. So therefore this vitakka, applied mind, is opposed to the sloth and torpor, thina middha. And on the other hand, when one continues doing that, so then we instruct the yogi to examine the object, whether the in-breath is long or whether the in-breath is short, whether the out-breath is long, whether it is short, whether is it warm or cool. So likewise now one does little investigation. So this investigation helps the mind to further focus on the object and to understand about the phenomena. And as a result of that, there are no doubts. So while doubting about the practice or while doubting about something else, you can't do this successfully. Now there is a task assigned to the mind, that is to carefully examine the phenomena. In this case, the breath. So when he carefully, successfully examines the phenomena, so there can't be doubt. So this examination, this investigation, what we call as vichara, is opposite to the doubt, that is the vichikicca, the last hindrance. So examination, investigation, therefore subside doubt. And then as one continues this, so there could be kind of a happiness arising, because if one is successful in it and mind does not wander, it does not go to the past or future here and there, so rather it properly stays with the primary object. So as a result of that, slowly one will get up, one will become somewhat satisfied and successful. As a result, little happiness start to arise in his mind. So when happiness is available, and it may even grow to the rapture, piti, and when happiness, rapture, is available, there is no possibility of arising thoughts of ill will. So therefore this happiness, rapture, is opposite to the ill will. The ill will is the second hindrance, vyapada, and this ill will is eradicated or temporarily subsided once the mind is going through happiness. And then one is continuing one's practice and one's mind become fairly concentrated and somewhat collected. When the mind is collected, concentrated, it stays continuously with the breath, and there is no time for lustful thoughts, because lustful thoughts are the situation or the result of an unconcentrated mind. Because the nature of the mind is to jump from one beautiful thing or one pleasurable thing to another pleasurable, beautiful thing. So that is the lustful nature of the mind. But when the mind is fairly concentrated onto one selected object, so that jumping nature, that pleasure-seeking nature is temporarily subsided. As a result of that, we can say when the mind is concentrated, the ekaggata is available, so that actually opposes the arising of kamachanda, the sensual desire. So sensual desire, kamachanda, is now eradicated, temporarily subsided when the mind is fairly concentrated. And now when these things are happening properly, so body is somewhat tranquilized and the mind also tranquilized, and it is experiencing some contentment, happiness, sukha. So this contentment, this happiness is opposite to the restlessness and regret. When the body and the mind is quite satisfied and contented, feeling pleasant, then it doesn't need to go and regret about the past or to enjoy any kind of uncertainties going to happen in the future. And again, it doesn't necessary to become restless because internally he is happy. Therefore, this contentment, happiness, sukha arising as a result of the practice is opposite to the restlessness and regret, that is the uddacca kukkucca nivarana, hindrance. So likewise we can say, so as a result of the development of concentration, there are 5 factors are emerging, 5 factors are developing. Those are quite opposite to the hindrances. When these 5 factors are quite dominant and they take their full-fledged form, so then it is called the first jhana or the first absorption. So therefore Buddha mentioned as a kind of a stock phrase in the suttas how the first jhana one is experiencing. Idhauso bhikkhu viviccheva kamehi vivicchakusalehi dhammehi savitakkan savicharam vivekayam piti sukham patamajjhanam upasampajja viherati. So basically, as a result of the practice, he is able to overcome the hindrances and he is able to experience jhana factors, some concentration factors. Those are quite fulfilling, satisfying, and as a result of that, he is able to absorb the first jhana. So these jhanas therefore defined based on the jhana factors. If it consists of 5 jhana factors, then it is called the first jhana. Now, in this situation, Buddha mentioned in certain other suttas like Kayagata Sati Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. So it's a very blissful experience. It's very much like he's giving a somewhat interesting example here, simile here. So during the old time, there were no soap and they have used some sort of a powder. And to that powder, if one wants to have a bath, he is simply putting some water and then mixing with it with the water and then makes a lump. So then that powder does not go away, so it becomes somewhat cohesive. So then Buddha mentioned, now each and every particle of that powder is become wet and they are becoming cohesive, attached to each other, and there is no any particle which is not being wet. Similarly, if one is experiencing first jhana, his whole body, his whole mind is pieced with this what you call the piti sukha, vivekajena piti sukha, where sort of rapturous and happy, pleasurable state came through the seclusion. So his mind is now fairly secluded from various hindrances. As a result of that, mind is enjoying this supramundane kind of happiness, Niramisa Piti. So then if one develops this concentration more and more, so he may be able to somewhat enhance it. He may be able to dwell in it for a long time and able to master it. And as he is mastering this, maybe understand that there are certain restful natures still available in the mind. The again and again applying the mind to the primary object is somewhat tiresome, because again and again there's a task to do. So mind has some sort of a wobbling, some sort of movement, and it is somewhat closer to the hindrances. Therefore one recognizes these shortcomings in the first jhana. So that is the application of the mind again and again to the selected object, and again roaming or moving inside the object. During the examination of the objects, the mind is somewhat moving inside the object. So this one recognized as certain shortcomings in the first jhana. So he is now willing to have the second jhana, which is free from these shortcomings. If one is able to apply the mind to a particular object, if he can fix on it without any movement or without reapplying, if one applies to the very first time, that's it, and one is quite fixed with the object, extremely absorbed to the object. And therefore Buddha mentioned, so if one is preferring that much of a fairly highly concentrated state, then one leave aside the first two jhana factors, vitakka vichara, and then can attain the second jhana, which is free from vitakka vichara. Vitakka vicharanang upasama ajjattang sampasadanam chetaso ekodi bhavang avitakkang avicharam samadhidang picitsukang dutiya jhanang upasampajja vihirati. So this is how Buddha explained the second jhana, where one is eradicating the applied mind and the sustained mind, or applied thought and the sustained thought, vitakka vichara, and now the mind is firmly established on the selected object, and as a result of that he is experiencing more rapture and more pleasure. More rapture is available and he is experiencing more blissful state. And there also Buddha mentioned that he is somewhat overwhelmed by this pleasurable experience, blissful experience, and he is somewhat immersed in this blissful experience, and there is no any place in the body or in the mind where it is not immersed or experiencing this blissful kind of a pleasant experience. So there is an interesting simile here also Buddha give for the second jhana. So he mentioned there is a very pleasant overfilling or spilling out pond available, and there is no stream coming from the north direction. There is no water stream coming from the north direction to the pond. Similarly, there is no water stream coming from the east direction, nor from the south direction, and nor from the west direction. Again, there is no rain. Then Buddha asks how still this spilling out happens. It is quite pleasant every time. The very cool and pure water is spilling out from this pond. Then Buddha mentioned internally there is a spring, water spring internally at the bottom, and through which very cool pure water is coming to the pond. As a result of that, the pond is spilling out. Similarly, Buddha mentioned now this person, the yogi, not entertaining any kind of sights, sounds, smells, taste and tactile sensations. His mind is still happy, quite pleasurable, quite blissful. How? He is enjoying some internal bliss. The pleasure being born internally, not through the outside stimulations, rather through the internally he is quite happy. So this is the second jhana. There Buddha explained how one is sort of going through that sort of a blissful experience. Now here, compared to the first jhana, the concentration is high. There it is mentioned samadhijang piti sukha, and the bliss or the pleasure, rapture arised because of the well concentrated mind. There is no any wavering, there is no any movement in the mind. Mind is properly established on the primary object, and onto which mind has properly sort of absorbed. So it is somewhat fixed, it is extremely absorbed, fully grasped. As a result of that, mind has no movement at all, no agitation at all. Therefore enjoys some sort of a bliss, some pleasure, because the object, the primary object, is a very pleasant, subtle object. And one is continuing this practice, and he is again and again attaining this second jhana, and as a result of that, now he can fairly master second jhana. Now when he is mastering second jhana, he may understand, according to the teaching, that there are still some movement, some gross nature in the mind because of this pleasure, because of the rapture. Because this rapture sometimes manifests in various forms, sometimes like waves coming and going, or sort of overwhelming the body, and sometimes it is like very much like goosebumps happening. Sometimes it is floating, sometimes completely immersed in the pleasure. So likewise, there are, even though it is somewhat pleasurable, so it is making the mind somewhat agitated. Little agitation is there when that rapture is happening. So one understands this shortcoming available in the rapture. So as a result of that, then Buddha mentioned, okay, he understands these shortcomings available in rapture. Now he wishes to remove rapture and to have more mature contentment available in the mind. There is no agitation at all, there is no movement at all, and not even gross happiness, gross pleasurable happiness experience. Rather, one is simply have a very mature contentment. Now he is overcoming rapture and attain the third jhana, which is free from rapture, but available very pleasant, tranquil contentment in the mind. So Buddha mentioned Pitiyacha virago upekkakocha viharati satocha sampajano. Now he has relinquished rapture, and he is more into the mindfulness, and he is quite aware what is happening. His clear comprehension is fairly sharp, and he is experiencing happiness, contentment instead of rapture. Sukhancha kayena patisangvedeti. Now he is experiencing more contented, mature state of happiness. And with this sort of happiness, his whole body, his mind is fully covered, fully immersed. And there also Buddha give a somewhat interesting simile. In a lake, there are various kinds of flowers like lotus, etc. And Buddha mentioned all those assume that they are under the water. If they are under the water, then the whole flower is immersed in water. There is no any place which is not immersed in the water, because it is fully under the water. Every part of the flower is wet by the water, immersed in the water. Similarly, Buddha mentioned in this third jhana, one is experiencing nippitikena sukhena. So it's a happiness, contentment, free from rapture. Rapture is somewhat gross in nature, but this happiness is fairly contentment based and mature state of happiness, and it does not waver the mind. It does not make the mind restless or agitated. So that is therefore more peaceful and more blissful, and therefore it is already appreciated by the nobles, mentioning tang ariya achikkanti upekko satima sukha vihariti. So there is a special appreciation given for the third jhana. So it is mentioned that this is the most contented state that one can experience in this life, and that is being appreciated by the nobles. And one is experiencing it for a long time, and now it is mastering by the yogi. And as he is mastering the third jhana, then Buddha mentioned, now the mind become more and more refined, and he is more capable of recognizing these jhana factors. His mindfulness and clear comprehension fairly improved. As a result of that, he even understands the gross nature of the happiness. Now his mind is inclined towards equanimity, and he recognizes equanimity is more mature, more stable than the happiness. Because happiness is fairly conditioned and it depends on certain other requisites, but the equanimity is fairly mature and it is somewhat self-sustained, and therefore he recognizes equanimity is the best. Now his mind is more inclined towards developing equanimity and concentration. The mind is equanimous yet very concentrated. So he is now going to the fourth jhana, which is explained as Sukassaca pahana, dukkassaca pahana, pubbeva somanassa domanassanang attangama, adukkang asukkang, upekka sati parisuddhing, chatuttat jhanang upasampajja vihirati. So this is how it is explained in the suttas, the fourth jhana, attainment of the fourth jhana. So he understood the gross nature of the happiness, he understood the gross nature of the sorrow, lamentation, etc. And he has now already overcome those pleasurable and more gross states of the mind. Mind has become more and more refined, and he is experiencing adukkang asukkang. There is no any pain, there is no any pleasure. The body and the mind experiencing equanimity, and there the mind is fairly purified with mindfulness. Upekka sati parisuddhing. So the mind has fairly purified and fairly become stabilized using mindfulness, which is based on the equanimity. Now the mind is equanimous, mindful, well concentrated, fairly firm, absorbed to the primary object, and he is experiencing the fourth jhana. So fourth jhana is more stable, more stronger form of absorption than the previous three. So there Buddha mentioned, so imameva kayang parisuddhena cetasa pariyodatena paritva nisinno hoti. Now his mind has become extremely pure, free from any hindrance, and it is extremely fixed, stabilized, and therefore he is experiencing an extremely pure state of mind. And there is no any place which is not experiencing that throughout the body. The whole body is immersed in that purity and clear comprehension and mindfulness. So therefore Buddha gave a interesting simile here as well. He is telling that if a person is putting kind of a cloak which is entirely white color, his whole head is covered, his whole neck is covered, shoulders are covered, arms are covered, the whole body is covered by this cloth or cloak which is entirely white color. So therefore Buddha mentioned there is no any place visible outside, because the white color cloth has fully covered the whole body. Similarly, Buddha mentioned when one is firmly established in the fourth jhana, he is experiencing that sort of a purity in the mind. There is no any hindrances at all. Temporarily his mind is extremely pure and firm, stable. So this is the explanation given for the fourth jhana. So one can attain all these jhanas in many different ways. Say for example, if one is practicing mindfulness on breathing, using which one can experience all these four jhanas. And in order to firmly establish, one may even develop the anapanasati nimitta, or the sign of concentration, and using which one can attain the four jhanas. So that is the, we can say, the most firm or stable way of attaining jhana. On the other hand, there are other teachers explain that it is not essential to have the nimitta. Even one is maintaining one's attention on the breath, and if the jhana factors are present, one can consider the absorption is available. On the other hand, if one is practicing metta, the loving kindness meditation, he also can attain three jhanas: first jhana, second jhana, and the third jhana using the metta meditation, loving kindness meditation. Say if one is practicing mudita, this altruistic joy, similar situation. If one is practicing karuna, the compassion, similar situation. First, second, third jhana can be attained. And if one practices upekka, equanimity, one can attain the fourth jhana. So likewise, it is not simply the anapanasati, the mindfulness on breathing, that one can use to attain four jhanas, that there are other techniques, other methods also available. And say if one wants to go further, say even formless jhana, one has to use kasina. So that is another subject where one has to develop, and using which one can even let go of the form and can attain the formless, boundless jhana. So likewise here Buddha mentioned the Samma Samadhi in one aspect. One can experience this blissful state in this very life. Now, as I mentioned, this is not the complete coverage of the Samma Samadhi. Now, there are other suttas Buddha mentioned about Samma Samadhi as a more inclination towards a Nibbana. Say for example, there is one interesting sutta called Samma Samadhi Sutta, available in Asankata Sangyutta, in Sangyutta Nikaya, where Buddha mentioned Katamocha Bhikkave Asankatagami Maggo, and he is asking the question, what is the path leading towards the unbinding, leading towards the Nibbana? Ida bhikkave bhikkhu samma samadhing bhaveti viveka nisitang, viraga nisitang, nirodha nisitang, vossagga parinaming, ayang uchchati bhikkave asankatagami maggo. And he gave a very clear definition, clear explanation, that if one develops samma samadhi, right concentration, inclined towards viveka, inclined towards the seclusion, inclined towards dispassion, viraga, inclined towards nirodha, cessation, and fulfilled in the relinquishment, that is the path, that is the concentration we can say as the Samma Samadhi. So likewise you can see Buddha has given many aspects of Samma Samadhi, because Samma Samadhi is not a fixed factor. One may start with absorption if possible, but his concentration may evolve. As we discuss in Sati, mindfulness. So mindfulness is not a fixed factor. You can't give a fixed definition for mindfulness. Instead, it's an evolving quality. So during the Kayanupassana level, you are experiencing one form of mindfulness, which is with respect to the body. And when one develops Vedananupassana, so he is further enhancing his mindfulness with respect to the feelings. So when one is experiencing the mind, various mind states, so there he is further broadening his mindfulness with respect to the mind. And when he is analyzing various phenomena in Dhammanupassana, so he is further broadening and further enhancing his mindfulness. And he is reaching the faculty level, Sati Indriya. He is reaching the Bala, the power level, Sati Bala. And further he is reaching the Bojjhanga level, Sati Sambojjhanga, and then he is reaching the Samma Sati, that is in the Noble Eightfold Path. Similarly, Samadhi also evolves. It's an evolving quality. It's not a fixed quality. So, in the five faculties, we come across Samadhi, Saddha, Viriya, Sati, Samadhi, Panya. So that at that level, the mind is fairly concentrated. The yogi can recognize the quality of the Samadhi, quality of the concentration. Now all the hindrances are overcome and the mind is fairly established. Therefore, we can say, okay, mind has collected, mind has concentrated. So one form of level one can recognize in Samadhi, concentration. And then further evolves. It is further evolving to the power level. Now one has concentration power, the power of concentration. So even if the mind becomes restless, one is not much worried about it, not shaken, because one knows ways and means to relinquish that restlessness and to quickly establish concentration. So now he is fairly skillful in developing concentration. So his concentration has become a power in the mind. He can quickly concentrate his mind. He is not overwhelmed by restlessness. He is not overwhelmed by, say, obsessive thinking. If it is necessary, he can quickly concentrate his mind, quickly collects his mind. So therefore, it is further evolving. And then he reaches the Bojjhanga, the enlightenment factor level, and there he encounters Samadhi Sambojjhanga. Now he is developing concentration attuned towards the awakening, attuned towards the enlightenment. He is not just for the entertainment he is developing concentration, rather he understands the value of concentration as the enlightenment factor. Now, in order to overcome hindrances, mind has to have concentration, and this concentration is now he is using as a prerequisite for his enlightenment, for to maintain an awakened nature in the mind. So therefore he is now taking the concentration into a different direction, different direction. Not just absorbed and fixed in that concentration, rather he is further and further enhancing it, broadening it, and using it as to overcome various hindrances. And when it comes to the Samma Samadhi in the Noble Eightfold Path, as we discussed, so there are different categories we can touch. This is the first category. What we discuss now is the level of absorption. Now, if one develops further these absorptions and master them, especially the fourth jhana, and Buddha mentioned one would be able to get the clairvoyance, where one is able to see things even during the night. Even the far things can be visible. So this is somewhat called abhinya, where one has to develop the aloka sanya, that is the perception of light. What one experiences during the daytime is also able to develop during the night time. Again and again, this aloka sanya, the perception of light, being developed in one's mind. So the mind becomes more luminous, more spacious, more bright. As a result of that, one can gain sort of somewhat supernormal kind of vision, through which one can recognize even far objects, and one can penetrate the walls. So likewise, this abhinya type of skills can be developed. So this is the second type of samadhi that Buddha mentioned. Atti bhikkave samadhi bhavana bhavita bahulikata jnana dassana patilabhaya samvattati. Here jnana dassana patilabhaya means this clairvoyance, to having the clear vision even during the night, and even one can penetrate the solid objects. So one has developed this skill through the concentration, through especially the fourth jhana, by mastering fourth jhana and attaining various abhinya. Basically, these two types of concentration. The first category is based on the four jhanas, and the second category, having clairvoyance, is primarily based on samatha practice, samatha concentration, tranquility concentration. And the other two, samadhi bhavana, bhavita, bahulikata, sati sampajanyaya samvatati. There's another two. One is based on if one develops, if this kind of concentration develops, one would be able to develop or attain mindfulness and clear comprehension. The fourth category, bhavita, bahulikata, asavanang khayaya samvatati. There's another type of concentration. If one develops, one would be able to overcome influxes. So these two are more advanced, we can say. They are more towards the vipassana. What we discussed today is more towards the samatha, the tranquility concentration, tranquility practice. So we'll discuss the other two more towards the vipassana on next week. And today, therefore, I like to wind up today's Dhamma sermon, Sutta teaching session with that explanation. Now I like to open the session for questions.
For any new friends joining us for the first time, you may ask questions by sending to them anonymously via the chat, or you may raise your hand and ask a question.
So no questions, Jennifer.
Looks like everybody is still pondering what Bhante taught. So it looks like we have Joseph. You may unmute.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, yeah.
Bhante?
Yes.
So, hello. So I noticed happening the past maybe 2 months in my practice, when I'm sitting, I can get fairly quickly to a subtle breath, which I can become calm, and I can notice the breath, the characteristics of the breath, the in and the out breath, the long and the short breath, the kind of hardness or softness within, say, 10 minutes or so. And then I become quite empty-minded and concentrated. And even with, say, sounds, like I can hear the kids running around upstairs maybe, or the traffic outside, and I feel that it comes and goes. It's not, I don't feel my mind is really resting on anything or being pulled away by any of those things as distractions. But that's something I started to notice, because I'm not using a timer anymore, like a clock. I'm just kind of sitting and then coming out. And if I sit for longer, just because I feel I have more time or I'm not pressed, I don't have any kind of engagement, so I feel like I can stay in that state for longer. I noticed maybe after about close to an hour, I go from having a very stable sitting position, where I'm sitting on the floor with sort of crossed legs, but my legs aren't on top of each other. I have my sort of left foot up near my right thigh, and my right foot, say, on the floor near my left shin. So I'm sitting comfortably. And then after about an hour, I sort of noticed this pattern where all of a sudden I start to lean backwards, and I don't intentionally try to stop that. It sort of happens. I feel like my body is naturally moving. And then as I'm sort of leaning back, I note that my hand will grab my right leg and then pull it up, so that it's up in like a half lotus position on my left thigh. And then I go back up sitting straight. My attention is drawn to the sort of the tension or the feeling of somewhat pain that's there in the leg, but it's not really distracting. and I can quickly sort of see through it and see the subtle breath again, which hasn't really been disturbed through that whole process. And then maybe about 5 minutes later, I'll also start to lean back again, and I just let it happen without trying to intentionally stop it or speed it up or anything. And then as I'm leaning back, my hand reaches out, grabs my left leg and pulls it up over my right thigh so that I'm in like a full lotus position, and then I'm sitting up again, and I have quite a bit of pain and strain, and I'll be able to sort of sit like that for maybe about 10 minutes, and I notice my mind is quite like aware of pain, but at the same time, and I'm not able to sit straight upright, so it's a little like strained, and yet if I have tried to intentionally adjust my position, it tends to really break the concentration. So I just don't no longer try to adjust my position intentionally. I just kind of sit in whatever position I am, and notice that even though it's intense, that I'm still concentrated. And then after about 5-10 minutes, I open my legs up, and then I come out of my meditation practice. And I just kind of noticed this happening. At first I thought it was maybe not such a good thing, that I should just be sitting without moving. But then I sort of reflected that because I don't feel that I'm doing it intentionally, that it's just sort of happening, and it doesn't seem to be a distraction, that I would just carry on. So I don't really know what to make of it, and I thought I would ask for your comments. Thank you.
Yeah. So basically, I think as you are moving forward, the posture also has to be more relaxed. Now, at the beginning stages, actually, say in your beginning of your practice several years ago, so you are maintaining more effortful and erect position, and that is actually helpful to continue our practice, and it is kind of a firm and effortful posture. But as we are moving forward, so the mind already develops concentration and mindfulness, and also the wisdom, and as a result of that, mind is able to let go of all the graspings. Now the mind is free. Now, as you mentioned, you can maintain a mind which is not established at any place. So this is what we discuss as the level of unassociated mind or non-grasping mind. And this, when one reaches this stage, so the typical say schedule type of meditation is not quite applied. Rather, you have to allow meditation to happen. So meditation sort of unfolds. Rather than you do meditation, you let the meditation to evolve, let the meditation to unfold. So as you mentioned, now you are not using a timer. So that's a good sign that you allow meditation to take over. You are not manipulating, you are not controlling it. You simply do the daily practice. And when things are conducive, the mind is taking the path, developing, and after a while it stops. And certain other days it may even longer, and certain days it may little shorter. Doesn't matter. There are certain signs indicating the end of the session. Say for example, you are sitting and you are experiencing say about 45 minutes. You understood that the mind is growing. Say previously there were some little amount of hindrances, and you assume that you are trying to maintain the mind unestablished, and those thoughts appear in the mind and you are not grasping them. You simply allow them to go. You are simply dropping them. As a result of the mind become more and more clear, more and more free from any hindrance, and further refined, and you are removing any tension. So likewise, the positive aspects are growing in the mind, and you can recognize this growing part. And once you reach to say 45 minutes, for example, you may experience somewhat sort of yawning, little relaxing further, sort of taking a deep breath and sort of making a kind of a sign of ending. So these kinds of little signs are there indicating the end of the session. So we need to be careful to recognize these end remarks. So if we are able to recognize that, if we want to intentionally extend the session, so that is not appropriate. So rather we have to allow things to happen. Now we understood, okay, the session has come to the end. So there are a couple of yawning happens. The body also wants to have a sort of a different posture now. Mind doesn't sort of enjoy the further effortful continuation. So at that time you better complete the session or end the session and maybe go to the walking path. So likewise, so in this situation we are not into the controlling type of meditation, but rather we allow the meditation to evolve and we somewhat surrender to the situation. So in such situation, actually what Joseph has mentioned might not happen, because so you already went through the session with a very comfortable posture and you haven't even changed the posture, and you went through the whole session with that posture, and at the end of the session, of course, you get certain signs. Now the session is over, now the posture has to be changed, and you may even end the session, and now you are going to the walking path maybe. Hope you got the point, Joseph.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that, Bhante. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Chitra Devi to please ask the next question.
Thank you. Bhante, you explained the 4 jhanas, and then you went on to say that we can attain those by the Anapanasati and also the Metta meditation, Karuna and Upekkha. You also mentioned another, number 2, which I'd like you to just elaborate, because I missed that. I couldn't understand that. Bhante, please.
Yeah, actually, I purposely elaborated in very short, because the 4 jhanas are, in a way, we can say achievable, but the second part, that is the clairvoyance, the Dibba Chakku is, it's more difficult part in a way. It's very rarely one can achieve it nowadays. Because one has to master jhana in order to attain that. It is not something that one can attain within a couple of days of practice. Rather, years of practice, mastering of 4th jhana is necessary to attain the second type of concentration, that is the clairvoyance. So that is why, so actually in the Buddha's teaching, or rather in the Vipassana oriented practice, so we are not emphasizing even the jhana. And we are not emphasizing the clairvoyance at all, Dibba Chakku at all, because Buddha mentioned, these concentration states are only blissful states, they are temporary states, and his aim of his dispensation is not the concentration. And there are certain other schools mentioning concentration as they are the best achievement. Say for example, Bodhisattva, before his full enlightenment, he went through a couple of teachers. Say for example, Alara Kala. So Alara Kala has mentioned the 7th jhana, Arupa jhana, the Akinchanyayatana, nothingness, as the fulfillment of his teaching. So Bodhisattva also attained that, but he understood very well, this is not the end, this is not the Nibbana, this is not the path. And then he went on and he come across Uddakarama-putta. And he mentioned that the Neva Sanya Nasanyayatana, neither perception nor non-perception, as the fulfillment of the practice. He considered that as the end, that as the Nibbana. But the Bodhisattva attained that, and he understood that this is not the end. This is not the complete overcoming of suffering. This state can't overcome the suffering. So Bodhisattva understood that, he given up even that. So therefore Buddha's teaching, even though Buddha mentioned about the 4 jhanas and the ways and means to achieve them and various explanations about the 4 jhanas, Buddha very well clearly mentioned, and this is not the end. Say for example, if you refer Salleka Sutta, and he refer all 4 jhana and he mentioned, don't consider these states are capable of uprooting defilements. It is not. And similarly he explained the Arupa jhana, and he emphasized, don't consider these states are capable of uprooting defilements, rather they simply give you kind of a temporary blissful state. That's it.
Now within this, the first, before coming to the second, in the bliss in this life, you went through 3 methods of attaining that, Bhante. You said Anapanas, we can attain the bliss in this life through Anapanasati and Metta meditation and those Karuna and Upeka, but you also mentioned another method that we can do to get the bliss in this life.
That is Kasina.
That is Kasina.
Kasina meditation.
Okay.
So there are now, I mean, the Arupa jhana, especially the formless concentration, you can't attain through Anapanasati. So you need the kasina for that. And maybe if one master the Arupa jhana using kasina, probably later one can even use various other techniques to attain there if the mastering has happened. But the typical approach is using the kasina that one can attain the Arupa jhana. And actually, kasina is capable of attaining the 4 material jhanas as well, and it has the capability to attain Arupa jhana as well.
Right. Then you went on to talk about the bala, so what I understood, and correct me if I have misunderstood, that if we develop those balas, we can attain the concentration that one gets through jhanas, through developing the balas, and also getting to the 7 factors of enlightenment. Did I understand that correctly?
It is a kind of a evolvement. So when you experience, say it's easy to explain using mindfulness. Say when you are experiencing Satipatthana, there are 4 categories of Satipatthana, and you are having different forms of mindfulness. Mindfulness as a result of the development through the body, through the feelings, through the various mind states. So likewise, so the mindfulness is kind of evolving, enhancing by establishing various forms. And then you are reaching the level of the indriya, the faculty, sati indriya. So that is where you recognize mindfulness as a separate quality in the mind. So at certain times you understood, okay, now the mind is fully fledged with mindfulness, fully sharp mindfulness. So that is the main priority or the dominant factor in the mind. And there are certain other times mindfulness is somewhat weak. So you are able to distinguish this, the presence or the absence or the strength of the mindfulness. And then, one moment. So when you reach the bala, so there you are now capable of establishing mindfulness easily, and therefore you have enough confidence about the techniques and your skills, and therefore even if mind become unmindful, you are not shaken by that. So that is the sort of quality you say when it comes to the level of bala, the power. The power of mindfulness indicates that you are unshakable even when the mind is into unmindfulness. Because quickly I can establish mindfulness, quickly I can come back to the senses. So similar to samadhi. The samadhi also you start developing as a result of development of mindfulness. Now the mind is not jumping here and there, rather is fairly concentrated. And when it comes to the indriya level, faculty level, and you understand, okay, now today the samadhi is more powerful. After a couple of minutes, I was able to attain the jhana. So likewise, you understood, okay, today the jhana, the concentration is more powerful. But there are certain other days this is not possible. It may take long time to attain jhana or the mind to concentrate. There you understand, okay, the concentration is not the dominant factor. Certain other things may be the dominant factor. And when it comes to the power, there you understand, okay, even the mind is restless. You are not wavering. You are not sort of panicked, because you know I can immediately come back to the concentration which is necessary.
So is that path, the bala has to be developed by starting the anapanasati, going into the jhanas and then going that way? Would that be right if I said that?
We can
or
say...
can you go shortcut? Can we have the shortcut of from developing the 5 balas and going directly without, I mean, not that we do it, we all the time do the anapanasati anyway to start with, but is that a shortcut? That's my question.
Yeah, actually, attainment of jhana, we can't say it's a must. So, I mean, because certain schools mention, certain teachers also mention, so, I mean, the jhana factors are the ones defining the level of concentration and the level of jhana. So, the type of jhana. Say, the depth of concentration may vary. That's why I mentioned through anapanasati, one can experience a level of concentration without anapanasati nimitta, anapanasati sign. But on the other hand, if one has anapanasati sign, and one can absorb to that and experience concentration. So that is, we can say, more deeper. But the jhana qualities are already there even before that. So one can recognize that. So basically, so in order to practice vipassana, you don't need jhana as a must.
A requisite, yeah.
As a requisite, yes.
Yeah. Because as you said, as we go along, when we just sit, if you are doing it with effort, with regular effort, it just goes into concentration very quick, mindfulness and concentration very quickly.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Bhante?
Correct. So that's why, I mean, now as our hindrances subside and they become weaker, you don't need a lot of effort to attain jhana or a lot of effort to attain concentration, because the hindrances are fairly subsided, they have become fairly weaker. And on the other hand, you don't need even deeper concentrations in order to maintain kind of a stable mind, because you know the instability of the mind depends on the level of the defilements. So if you are able to address defilements, if you are able to weaken defilements, so you already enjoy some amount of stability of the mind. So therefore, that is where the concentration then becomes kind of a secondary factor. It is not becoming a primary factor. Rather, you don't need a lot of concentration. Rather, you want to have clarity of mind just to develop mindfulness and clear comprehension. You need to, actually the target is to clearly comprehend various phenomena, various behaviors, various traits, various defilements arising in the mind. Because you want to purify the mind. So that becomes your goal.
So that's right, Bhante, because at that level I turn to Vipassana, so I'll be looking forward to hearing your talk next week to see whether I'm doing it correctly. So that because earlier I used to enjoy the concentration and the happiness, but now I just after I get a fair amount of concentration, I switch to Vipassana. So I will listen to your talk next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome.
Okay, Bhante, the next question is, Dear Bhante, as there are 4 different paths to reach samadhi, should one have to make a decision or which way the meditation need to proceed?
Yeah, actually at the beginning you can't do that kind of a determination, because at the beginning mind is full of hindrances and mind is agitated. So you simply have to let things happen as the way the mind is developing. Say for example, if mind is somewhat inclined towards the samatha practice, let it happen. You don't need to purposely stop it. On the other hand, if the mind is more investigative, examining various processes and fairly developing wisdom, let it happen. You don't need to hinder that process. Later, as you are gaining certain skills, so you understand, that's why I mentioned the indriya, the faculty level. So there are 5 faculties Buddha explained. Saddha, Viriya, Sati, Samadhi, Panya. Saddha is the faith, Viriya is the effort, Sati is the mindfulness, Samadhi is the concentration, Panya is the wisdom. Now, as a result of continuous practice, so one may recognize these 5 qualities developing in the mind. So now you can distinctly recognize these qualities. Say, for example, at the beginning, you don't know what is mindfulness, you don't know what is concentration, you don't know what is effort, because these certain qualities, even though we have learned through books, we haven't experienced them. We haven't experienced them our own. But later, as the result of the practice, now we experience these things by ourselves. We understand, okay, this is the mindfulness, this is the effort available in the mind, this is the concentrated level of the mind. So likewise, so you are able to recognize these qualities. So once you have that ability, then you can actually change. If necessary to give more emphasis on the Vipassana practice, you can move more emphasis on that. You can go towards that direction. If you want to develop the Samatha practice, you can go in that direction. But till that, it's a matter of simply exercising ourselves and get more and more experience into various these qualities, and then you can in a better position to do these adjustments.
Thank you, Bhante. And then I'd like to invite Lahisha to please ask the next question.
Thank you, Jennifer. Bhante, the first question was asked about the timing of the meditation, so I thought I will ask what I feel in my meditation about it. So when I do the 1 hour sitting, I also put the timer, like the alarm, and then but what I feeling like throughout this many months now, when it's getting closer to the time, I feel like one of my legs, right leg, giving kind of a severe pain, and when I try to look at it and wait, then it comes to the timing. So it's like the signal is that, okay, your meditation time is finished, like it's giving me the pain in the leg. So I was like, initially when it was happening, I was like scared, thinking, oh, what's happening here? But it keeps on, even today, every day pretty much. That's the way how I feel, okay, now my time is going to up, and I don't stop, but I keep doing. Keep looking at the pain then, and then the timer goes off. So I would like to, request any advice on that, Bhante.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. On one thing is, it depends on the state where you are practicing. Say, for example, at the beginning, say several years ago, when we practice, we have to even effortfully maintain the posture, because the body is not much supporting the practice. So body is experiencing a lot of pains and aches. Now, at that time, we have to persevere the situation, and that is how we are enhancing the perseverance, or we are enhancing the skills, so that we can maintain the same posture for a long time. But on the other hand, as you are developing further and further, say, as I said to Joseph, we are reaching a state where mind is not established. So at that time, your duty is to maintain a very comfortable posture, a very restful posture, relaxed posture, so that mind also entertain that relaxed attitude. The Viveka Nisitang, Viraga Nisitang, Nirodha Nisitang. So in order to entertain that kind of a seclusion to the mind, so you can't have a kind of painful posture. So the posture has to be fully supportive. So when the body becomes painful, automatically mind go and start to sort of hang around there. So mind may not get that seclusion. Now mind has something to, something to worry about. I mean, if you can let go that pain and keep the mind completely free, unassociated, then doesn't matter. But if the posture become uncomfortable and various aches and pains start to arise and they start to bother the mind, then mind loses that seclusion, loses that very relaxed, stress-free state of dwelling. So that is where we have to understand, okay, now the body has come to its limit. It can't maintain this posture. Either I have to change the posture. If you can try it, you can try that as well. You are changing the posture, making the body more comfortable, and now the mind also feel relaxed because there is nothing to worry, and now further mind can enjoy it. But on the other hand, if the mind understood, okay, now it has come to the end, the body also makes certain signs, as I explained before, indicating the end, then we better accept that end. We don't need to struggle like before. It's not a striving based practice now. Previously we probably have done some striving based practice. We are striving to achieve something. Now whenever you are trying to achieve something, you are missing the point at this level. Striving to achieve something is a sankhara. It's a kind of a formation. It's a fabrication. You are effortfully trying to do something. But here it's a kind of a effortless practice. You are allowing things to happen, allowing things to manifest rather than intervening intentionally. So that is where we need to distinguish the path. So as you are reaching more and more to the vipassana practice, so your attitude is not striving, rather you accept. You allow things. You allow things to manifest, unfold. So that is the way.
Okay, Bhante. Yeah, I'll add something to it. Yeah, like yesterday now, when I put the time, actually I put it, I was supposed to put it for 6:01, but I mistakenly put for 5:01, which I started at in the morning. So anyway, so I was meditating, and then like I got this pain, and I thought, okay, all right, but I will keep on because I can look at it, and then I will let it go. So the pain came, and it stays for maybe 5 minutes. And when I was looking at it continuously for 5 minutes, okay, it's paining, and I elaborate it where it is, where it's going, where it's stopping, and things like that. I concentrate on that, and then actually it's fade off completely, and then I keep going, and then going, and I was thinking, okay, and then I realized, the alarm didn't go, and then I checked the time. It was 6:49. It's like 1 hour and 49 minutes I did that day. So I feel like it's gone on the second cycle now, second hour. So I thought, okay, I will try this. Now when the pain comes next time also I'll try, but I couldn't do it today. I didn't have time, but I will try that. But it's going for another cycle of 50-55 minutes. And then the pain comes, so I will try that. And the other thing I wanted to mention to you is when I started the meditation, posture is not a problem at all for me so far. I can completely stay still without any feeling to my body. So I don't feel the body at all when after I started the vipassana. And I can keep going until I get the leg pain. When only the leg pain comes, then I feel like, okay, that's painful. But still I can keep the posture straight, sitting in the, what do you call it, paryanka. And I would like to keep it like that because that's the best posture so far for me. I feel like I'm comfortable starting the meditation like that one day.
Yeah, actually, I think I given the sort of the answer.
Yes, you gave the complete answer. I just want to tell you that posture is not a problem at all. The pain comes to signal me that the time is up. So it's like a bodily alarm that I have got.
Yes.
So I will try out with it. Thank you very much, Bhante.
Yeah. So it's a kind of a equipoise of the mind and the body. So the body is also supporting, mind is also in a good equilibrium. So then you are sort of happily maintaining the whole situation. So, I mean, sometimes the body starts to limit its, reach its limits, and then we have to recognize it. So either we have to change the posture, or we have to stop the session and we go for a walk. So it doesn't matter. I mean, it's not kind of a defeated state, because the primary goal here is to recognize various defilements and to maintain a very relaxed state of the mind, non-grasping state of the mind. So that is the objective, that is the goal. So it is not that we are trying to maintain a very deep concentration state for a long time. That is not the goal. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bhante.
Okay, welcome. So if...
So Bhante, I received one more question.
Yeah.
Okay. Dear Bhante, I generally begin with Anapanasati and my mind settles and becomes very quiet. Very often I start feeling a heat building up on my forehead, and it gets so intense that I can't carry on and I have to stop at once. I have tried watching this phenomenon, recognizing it as heat, but I can't keep meditating much longer. Please advise how I can get past this. Much merit.
Yeah, I think so. Before you come across this, probably you can say, rather than keeping your attention on the forehead, you can keep your attention on your legs, on your tummy, the movement of the tummy, and the touching sensation between arms. So likewise, you can keep attention more below the neck. Practically, so the sensations available below the neck is easy to handle. I mean, theoretically we can say throughout the body can handle. But practically, when you are doing the practice, so you may understand, handling various sensations and observing various sensations which are below to the shoulders are quite easy to handle. On the other hand, when you are practicing Anapanasati and if you get certain sensation inside the head, and if you try to keep attention to that, so it can lead to some sort of a headache. It can lead to maybe drowsiness, kind of uneasy situation. So therefore, practically better to find out various sensations below the shoulders, that those are easy to handle, easy to observe for a long time. So therefore, I feel you better, when you are able to reach some amount of concentration through Anapanasati practice, so recognize, if your practice is not moving forward with Anapanasati, because there are sometimes Anapanasati catching up the process. So then it is going to more sort of a blissful, very calm, tranquil, and so it is going through that sort of a path. But on the other hand, certain other times, the Anapanasati brings us to some level of concentration, and after that there are various sensations available in the body, and so we can observe those sensations. So during that time, you can select the sensations available in the lower part of the body, below your shoulders. They may not give any sort of side effects or any sort of complications, and you can continue the practice without much problem. Okay, I think we have come to the end. Jenny?
Yes.
Okay. So we have discussed suttas, as well as we have spent some time in discussing about the practice. So with that, we are able to accumulate a lot of merits. So let's share these merits by reciting the traditional verses. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasattha ca bummattha deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhantu sasanang. Akasattha ca bummattha deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhantu desanang. ආකාසට්ඨා ච බුම්මට්ඨා දේවානාගා මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරං රක්ඛන්තු මම් පරං ඉදං වෝ ඥාතීනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හුන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉදං වෝ ඥාතීනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හුන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉදං වෝ ඥාතීනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හුන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා සාදු සාදු සාදු